It seems that everything works except for, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So it's an operation which is not obvious. We're trying to link somebody from Lviv and you and streaming and us. So bear with us if it's not 100% perfect. But thanks a lot for joining us tonight. This is an event we've been planning for the last week and a half because we thought this was a very important thing to do, not only to support Ukrainian citizens and Ukraine in general in this terrible war, but also to get to know better people who joined us in Budapest, who came here from Ukraine, who live among us for now. We hope not very long, but let's get to know each other better because we have a lot of people around that I think deserve to be able to build connections and feel at home in Budapest. But we wanted to talk tonight about the situation of the cultural sphere and architects and designers in Ukraine and in exile. So we brought you a few people. We have Maria Yarchuk here from the Dnipro Contemporary Cultural Center, DCCC. We also have online with us Yevgenia Gubkina, and she's an architect and architecture historian, and she's founder of an NGO called Urban Forms, and she works a lot on post-war Soviet modernism and brutalism, postmodernism. So she published books about this topic, and of course we will talk with her about what's happening with buildings and what happens with the cultural heritage. I hope she can hear us, Yevgenia. I hope you're with us online, but we'll figure this out very soon. Okay, perfect. Fantastic. So thanks a lot for being here with us. What I wanted to mention to you, at some point we will also have joining us Mahmoud Barakat, who's a Syrian refugee, or actually he's waiting for his asylum process to come to fruits since years, and he's in Budapest, so he's joined us a little bit later because we would like to talk about the situation of refugees as well in the cultural sector and architecture. So we keep a chair here for him, and even more importantly, I wanted to share with you that we also meant this event to be a fundraising event. So you find everywhere a little posters with the QR code. So this is the PayPal account where you can donate, and this will go to the fundraising process that DCCC and Kultura Medialna started a few weeks ago. So this is a way to support our friends in Ukraine. This is going to all kinds of humanitarian aid and protective gears. So please don't forget to donate. If you only have cash, you also have a little box at the entrance, but please share this because this is a verified source where you can support these people. So let's start maybe with Maria. So Maria, we got to know a bit more than 2 weeks ago, maybe, or even less than 2 weeks ago. So she's a friend of a friend of a friend. So I was called from a friend in Berlin that he has some friends who arrived to Budapest and they need a bit of help. They need to get to know people. So we caught up with Kate from your organization, and we couldn't do much, but we could host her and her friends in our offices. So this is what we've been offering for a while. And this is how we met also Maria. And we wanted to talk a little bit about your organization and also how you've been dealing with the organizations in the last few weeks. So Maria, the floor is yours. And then we'll move over to Yevgenia after that.
So, good evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Cake, for hosting this event. My name is Maria. I'm from Dnipro. I was born in Dnipro. I'm working in Dnipro, and I hope soon we will be able to come back home. Today I wanted to, firstly I want to mention I wanted to mention about the fundraising campaign. So yeah, you can see QR codes, and I wanted to tell about the funds that they are going to volunteers and volunteer organizations we know personally and who are operating in Dnipro, Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Lviv currently. So, and mainly these funds go into medical assistance, evacuation, psychological support for children and adults. And also I wanted to tell about our organizations because I'm a project coordinator at Kultura Medialna, NGO, and Dnipro Center for Contemporary Culture. Here now you can see our team of Kultura Medialna, because Dnipro Center for Contemporary Culture hosts 4 organizations. One of these is Kultura Medialna, is our team, Artsvit Gallery, Alliance Française. You know this organization probably, and Xiproster, it's a space for young artists. So to begin with, I wanted to tell that we started our operation in 2013 year as NGO, and the first project was construction festival, and also it was obvious at that point that you know that in 14th year Donbass crisis appeared, and we tried to collect money to make fundraising events to support internally displaced people, to support other organizations, and to collect money for needs we can cover with ourselves. So about the festival, the first festival was in 13th year. It's a festival of contemporary culture, experimental music, and informal education in public space. We tried to, at that point, few first festivals we were doing in different venues. Usually they were places for cultural infrastructure, because and mostly from left from Soviet part, because it used to be a huge infrastructure with these huge theaters, palaces for culture, and cinemas. But now mostly they are not operating because they are huge buildings, and it's very expensive to support these buildings in normal condition and to pay all the rent and all utilities. So we try to, as possible, to take each time to take different places and to work with them, to work with the new context, because buildings are old and they had their previous idea, but now we try to rethink and sometimes to change or try to change even for a few days their form. So, but maybe from 16th or 17th year we started dreaming about our own space, because it was very difficult to organize, because our team was quite small at that point, and it was very difficult to organize all these events around the city, sometimes at the same time. It was sometimes almost impossible, and sometimes it didn't work well, but we tried. But we also wanted to make our own space where we can, which we can think is our home. And now at the photo you can see the main hall of our Dnipro Center for Contemporary Culture. So yeah, and from 16th year we had thousands of unsuccessful attempts to find space, to try to talk to municipalities so they can probably propose some places. So, and it was a really long and difficult process, but also thanks to help of the head of Czech Institute in Ukraine, Lucia Gorzovikova. She helped us a lot, she consulted us a lot, and she also helped us to collect a pool of European opinion makers. So we could talk to our local authorities, because I don't know what's the situation in your city, but in Dnipro we used to have this, if you are some grassroots initiative, you are not, you look suspicious and not interested for municipality. But when you come with guests from Europe, it's completely different situation. So it was the beginning of the dialogue with the municipality finally. And it took many years, and finally I also want to mention another important point in this long way, that it's in 17th year, together with Polish architect Kuba Snopek, we decided to make experimental project. It was like a prototype of cultural center. It was crowdsourcing and crowdfunding project. You can see a moment of building, because we took this place. It is a place abandoned place in the Central Park in Dnipro. And it was used by many people, but like for some their needs, so we made a big study, many interviews with local people who are using this place, asked them what they want to improve, what they need in their district, what they want to see them, and then together with many architects, they planned this structure. It's a stage, as you can see, and the idea was to build it for 1 year. Actually, only for half a year, because for warm part of the year, so people can use it. It was absolutely open. Anyone could book it. We had a moderator who just asked to follow instructions and to help to book time. So, and people were using it, but it was a long process, so people get used to this place. Finally, by the end of summer, and they asked us to keep it for the next year. But also we had to keep it for the next year, because honestly we didn't have money to demolish it, because the budget was went over the budget, and so it was there for 2 years, and it was very popular, and it also was a point to show municipality that this place like this is very important for the city, that we need something like this, and then the process started finally, and now we have since 19th year amazing building. I will ask Alina to show it. It was how it looked when we came there for the first time. It was abandoned building, but amazing old. It's from 19th century, beginning of 19th century. Now we still have reconstruction works there, mostly restoration works inside, because we have amazing main hall, main stairs, and blue hall on the second floor, which are still under restoration. No, now it's not. We don't have any construction works there, temporary. And the first project was Forum Regionum. You can see it on the photo. It's even not all the participants of the project, because we invited, for the residency, we invited artists, curators, journalists to firstly to meet this building, to get acquainted with the building, to work with it, and to develop and to think about the program, how we can develop this space, because the space is also huge. It's like 2,500 square meters, two-story building, and it was like official first start of this project.
When was it, the official start?
In 19th year. But the first project, this Forum Regionum, it was a residency for 1 week, but we didn't have windows even there, no heating, no utility, so it was quite harsh. But now, this is how it looks now. It's a photo from the other side, but the building is the same. It's inside. You can see some restorations.
It's a palace.
Yeah, initially it was a private house. Then for some period of time it was a little bit rebuilt, and it was municipal hall. Then in Soviet times, it was headquarters for army. And then for a long time, it was abandoned. And now it's a cultural center. Here you will see some photos from our events, because since 19th year, we hosted many events and different formats. It's like exhibitions, concerts, festivals, residencies, and a lot of educational projects. As I understand, mostly here are architects or people connected with architecture, yes?
We don't know, but we can figure this out. Who's architect in the audience? Can you raise your hands?
With architecture.
Who's artist or cultural producer? Okay. In the broader art field? Okay.
So because I prepared mostly because we have really a lot of projects, but I wanted to highlight mostly architectural projects, because I think it will be more interesting and more relevant for you. And also I forgot to mention very honorable part of my speech about this project stage, that it was built. Well, it was awarded it was built in 17th year, and in 18th year it was awarded for best European public space. It was the award ceremony was in Barcelona, and we came there, and it was really a weird situation, because we were sitting together with people who were doing some super expensive projects. For example, the winner of that year was the main square in Tirana. It is absolutely covered, the whole space is covered with marble. And I don't remember the budget of this project, but it's many times higher than our wooden construction. But why it was, we got, that year we got special mention, and it was because of the organization process, that it was built by people for people, and it wasn't like something made from upside down, because it was totally crowd-funded and crowd-sourced project. Yeah, and to other projects connected with architecture, I wanted to mention that we had, for a few years, we had educational project Youth Active City. It was a project for youth, for students who wanted to do something interesting in public space, but sometimes they didn't know how to do this, if they had already had the idea, or sometimes they didn't even have the idea, and we helped them to sometimes find this idea, or to find some place which need attention, to develop their project, to find funds, sometimes quite often to communicate with authorities, because it's also very important for projects in public spaces. And then we had budget for realization of these projects. And now they mostly work in like separate organizations. Here you can see one organization from Youth Active City. They, so we have, it's called Balkan, but it's like it's not a park, but it's kind of natural park in city, and they are doing. Firstly, they were cleaning the river in this park, and now they are doing some. They were doing before the war. They were doing some construction for having rest for children and so on. Also, Dnipro Monumentalism, it's our project which appeared as a reaction to demolition of this mosaic sculpture of Ernest Katkov. It was called Waves of Dnipro, and there you can see on the background, you can see a shopping mall which decided to buy this piece of land and to demolish this construction to build more shopping malls. And this organization, it works with, it tries to work with preserving modernist architecture or sculptures, or sometimes even pieces of buildings like vitrages. They are trying to somehow to protect and sometimes to save at least some pieces or details. And also project we were about to start this spring. It is called Room for Culture. It's an urban initiative. It's the idea to find not this project, another one, because this project was only in development, and the idea was to create mobile cultural space, something temporary, in residential districts far from the center, because unfortunately we have cultural, mostly quite decentralized inside of the city, this cultural infrastructure. So, and the idea was to find some initiative group of citizens and together with them to develop this project and to create this mobile pavilion somewhere in faraway district. In general, I also wanted to tell about how cultural sector was developing lately before the war, so you can better understand the situation and the context. Since 14th year, we had a lot of, so as you know that in 14th year, we had the annexion of Crimea and crisis in Donbass. And also parallel, we understood that, because firstly we thought that it was almost after we registered the NGO. And firstly, we thought that it's not the right time for culture, but then we understood that culture is soft power, and anyway, you should work also in this sphere to prevent some further hostile activities, and to work with people, to support people, and culture is very important even during the war. So we had many reforms beginning from 14th year, like decentralization. Was very important reform for Ukraine. It started working maybe at 19th year. We could see results of it. It means that because before this, everything was concentrated in Kiev, not everything, but many things, and including culture. And the main cultural events, the main museums, they had better collections, main festivals, they were in Kiev. But after this reform, it became easier to get funds in cities for local projects, and it was really important because we got many interesting and important projects around the whole country, and because before this you had to go to Kiev to visit some events, but after 16th, 19th year, many people, for example, they could travel around Ukraine to visit some different festivals, concerts, because also we at our festival, we had a lot of guests from other cities. Also, we had more and more grassroots organizations from civil society who work with children, who work with education, who work with culture as well, and we really had a lot of them, but now due to the war, now they have to change their focus, and mostly different organizations, due to their different situation, they are doing different things, like some of them had to evacuate, some of them volunteering. For example, our friends and partners module, it's underground nightclub, but they also a huge community for musicians, for sound recorders and publishers. And they now, most of them, they are in territorial defense, and some of them are in army right now. Many organizations, they are trying to, who connected with culture and with art, they are working on evacuating collections or trying to protect and when it's possible to protect art and to protect architecture. And At this point, I think it's time to pass the word to Zhenya, because she will tell more about cultural heritage.
Yes, thanks a lot, Maria. I think we're all impressed, and I'm really happy that you found us, Cake, as your natural temporary home, because I think what you told us, it's resonating with a lot of values and a lot of activities we do, and we have a lot to learn from you. Again, I hope you won't stay long with us, but I hope we can do a lot of things together until then. I wonder if Yevgenia hears us. So I would give it over to, yes, there you go. So we can all see you, and I guess we can also hear you.
Big international for that building is that that building is situated exactly in the complex of buildings, also Old Freedom Square, so Old Svoboda Square. That ensemble, and now I'm going to go before. So that is the picture of that ensemble, and maybe people who are somehow connected with the history of Soviet architecture, they can find here the beautiful building of Bergstrom in
Thank you very much, Evgenia. First of all, I would like to welcome Mahmoud Barakat, who joined us in the meanwhile. He's an architect also working on the issue of cultural heritage during war, from Idlib originally, and studied in Aleppo. And I think you had a very strong statement about the UNESCO doesn't have any protocols for wartime. It has all the protocols for protecting heritage during peacetime. So this is something we can elaborate a little bit in a second. But first of all, Evgenia, tell us about your NGO and how can you, what do you do now with your NGO Urban Forms, and you as an academic architecture historian, what can you add to this situation, to the discussion? You mentioned the need for documenting, of course, and trying to protect. So where do you see your agency at this moment and your NGO, or did you have to shut down all your operations? So how can you activate your experience in this very moment?
What we can try to do, for example, as I told you about our photographer, Pablo is documenting all the objects right now, and a few other great photographers from Kharkiv are doing the same thing, and we are gathering such an archive of destructions of the city. That is exactly the part of the documenting process. From outside, I'm like 7 hours from each day. I'm on some consulting meetings with different stakeholders and with some experts from abroad. Exactly what actually should be done in the future. Because that is the question from everybody. I have no agenda actually. What should I do? So I'm doing what I can. And in that talk, somehow we're trying to find what can be a solution, so what we will do in the future. That is quite a difficult process, so it looks like much more like coordination between very chaotic, very emotional participants of all that process. Because actually, even all the members of such old organizations like UNESCO, they are very emotional. All people, they react somehow in that situation and they want to help. And actually, all that processes, they need some, I think, some coordination and some management. And exactly on management, there is no forces in such moments. But right now, it looks like a lot of very chaotic movements. That's why I can say that maybe I'm a bit failed as an activist or as a manager, because I can't manage like 100 different specialists from different parts of the world with different agendas and with different methodologies. We should somehow gather that. And if somebody wants to help me in that process, it would be great. I think. And of course, Mahmoud, it would be great to hear your experience in that field, because, you know, maybe there is not a great deal, but just ordinary people from Kharkiv, they start, I'm sorry that they try to occupy some part of your history, but they start to use such materials like Kharkiv is the second element. So I'm sorry if that is a bit abusive or something like that, but people know Aleppo and they felt maybe the same. Just ordinary people from all the Kharkiv. So it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. We saw all these images of people bringing sandbags to protect monuments all across the country. And I would like to turn to Mahmoud just to ask if this resonates in you. Is this something you encountered when in Aleppo, or maybe not in Idlib, but in Aleppo, definitely? Is it something that people have time to do when they are being bombarded, to take care of monuments and artworks?
Thank you very much. Actually, yeah, it has relevance to the work which done in Martnaman Museum before it was taken by the regime in 2020, actually, in February, roughly. But before that, the work was done by the organizations in Idlib. It was in 2015-16, which is to protect the mosaic paintings. And they, like, the work we have done there, putting the sandbags. At the beginning of that, at the shock of the bombardment, it wasn't like emergency solutions. People were just trying to escape by their, like, to protect themselves, but later they found the importance of the heritage there as one of the or the biggest mosaic museum in Syria, so they considered its importance, and they decided to some initiatives. So my organization is there with my friends. After my graduation, that was in 2016, doing these things. So to have like the possibilities, because there are not enough things to do, or maybe just we placed also something on the cellar to protect if the bombardment will be destroying everything on the surface, and protecting the most important pieces, because in some other, let's say, you cannot protect all the building itself, because like every time they bomb it and then it's destroyed. So if you restore it again, it's pumped. So the only things you can do maybe emergency interventions, which is if there is some fractions or some cracks, you can try to eliminate the destruction. And then I think that is the most important things, that in a time of like human lives matters more than objects, but also objects, like what's the culture without a human? That's like it's quite complicated topic, complex, all into together. But I think that it's appreciated by some, like say, volunteering work immediately, because as there is no funding or support that people can do, or some, let's say, some experts can intervene and maybe can do such small actions which can make a big impact.
Also, we heard from Evgenia that there also this moment of thinking about what to build instead, no? And this is kind of a moment that some people put in parallel with the post-war era, that finally you can do something out of scratch. No, you have a tabula rasa. Is it the discourse you encountered when in Aleppo? Were architects thinking about what can they build? Was it a kind of a weird dystopian, utopian moment for architects, or not really?
Yeah, actually, I think it's on. It's on. Sorry, yeah. The point, which is the differentiation between cities, because it's more in Damascus than Aleppo, because Aleppo, the old city, it's on the heritage list, and that's protected by itself by the law. So they can just restore it, not demolish and build something. Nevertheless, they have some, I think, crazy ideas, I can say, because it's not like this combination or something they did before that in the 70s and 80s, but as now, I can say it's more focused on the media, so they cannot do something has a huge interventions or modification, and they just, the organization there, actually I think UNESCO working there and Aga Khan mainly, restored some places, but not in making something new in the protected area.
Okay, thanks. And Maria, I would ask you a little bit, because you're also working with objects as well. I mean, you showed us really beautiful projects of public space and, you know, the buildings you're using, but you're also working with artworks. And you told me, Kate told me the story that just a few days before the war, you actually shipped some Hungarian artworks back to a Hungarian gallery that were on loan, exhibited by you. So did you have a moment of, you know, well, these are the things we have to protect now, or you didn't have any trouble with, you know, protecting objects in a moment when you had to protect yourself in the first place?
No, I think it's okay. Yeah, we in Kultura Medialna we don't have our collection, but we when we are organizing exhibitions, for example, on 12th of February, we had the last day of huge exhibition, Poetry and Performance, Eastern European perspective. And we had really many artworks from all over Europe. And we had chance to send them, luckily, because otherwise I don't know what could we do, because they're really precise artworks. And the last one I was bringing with myself, but it was copies, but anyway I brought them to Budapest ACB gallery. Yes, so we luckily had chance to send them, but also I know that, for example, Art Suite Gallery, our partners at DCCC, they have their private collection, and now it stays in Dnipro, and because Dnipro is quite quiet for now, and they just try to make some measures to prevent damage. But again, if it's bombing, you can't protect artworks. So they did they put it to a more safe place. Just some graphics they took off glass frames to protect them in case if it helps. Also, I know about our Dnipro Museum, Art Museum. They are trying to. They have their storage. Underground for artworks, so they try to again what they can do is like to pack more safely. For example, they sewn these bags with sand for sculptures and packing paintings. That's all they can do. I know that a few galleries from Kiev, Kharkiv, and other cities who had chance, they tried to evacuate their collections, and there are organizations. They also, I know one organization, they were working with informal education. Now they are working with evacuation of artworks, and they are still doing this from Kiev, from Kharkiv, but they are storing them in Ukraine, in western part. What it's also like one of possible measures to do.
Maria, you mentioned in your presentation that in the last maybe 6, 7, 10 years, there's been a big grassroots movement with a lot of new cultural organizations. Even DCCC actually hosts 4 different organizations. So you have very strong cultural networks in your city. What happens with these networks when you're all scattered around and you all go in different places? Maybe are you still in touch with everyone? Do you have platforms to communicate? Do you communicate with everyone? So what happens with your local strong cultural scene that you are used to work in?
We are still communicating, of course, mostly in social media and personally with people we know. Like calling and messaging. Mostly now we are communicating about volunteering and some help we can do or help other initiatives to do something. Mostly it's because most of organizations changed their focus and now they're working on helping civil people, helping army, helping internally displaced people, because Dnipro for now it's like a hub for, because it's big city, close to, it's like now in the center, it's surrounded with cities with, like in the center of eastern part, and now it works like a hub for humanitarian help, a hub for medical help, because all wounded people, firstly they are going to Dnipro because it's more safe, and we have facilities to help them. So mostly all organizations from Dnipro, they are volunteering in Dnipro, who is staying in the city and who moved to western part or to Europe. We are still working together. For example, here in Budapest, now we with Alina from our team, and almost each morning we have calls with the rest of our team because we are trying to continue projects we can continue or to change them for fundraising activities or for helping Ukrainian artists or whatever we can do for now.
Yevgenia, you're in Lviv, right?
Sorry, I'm already in Latvia. It's near Riga.
Sorry, can you repeat, please? Yeah. Are you in Lviv?
Do you hear me?
Now, yes. Yeah.
Now, yes, yeah.
So you're in Lviv right now?
No, actually, I'm already in Latvia, near Riga. There is a small settlement called Yurlo on the seashore of Baltic Sea.
Because well, I would like to ask the same thing. So you have your NGO, you have your academic network, you're a historian. You used to work with people locally as well. Of course, you did the guide for Kharkiv. So how can you operate with your network going completely virtual? How does it work for you? Is it very intense? Can you continue some of your activities from distance?
I think now all the activities are very intense, so it's really very hard work. Like all the time you felt yourself like during some revolution or something like that. You communicate all the time, you talk, you coordinate someone, and moreover, all the time I work as the voice of Kharkiv, of architectural Kharkiv. Like each evening I talk and talk and talk, so I'm really a bit tired of talking. But I think that there is somehow my obligation that if I can talk about architectural heritage during the war, that is something that I should do for Ukraine and for my native hometown Kharkiv. And for other cities, because we just Kharkiv is, for example, beautiful historical city Chernihiv, or what everybody now know where is Mariupol, and so on. So there is, I think that it's something that I can actually do to preserve that topic, to give that topic a voice, and to still to give a picture. Actually, for example, that beautiful photographers that I talked about, they actually are like our eyes for such cities, and we can know what actually happened there and what happens with the heritage. That's why it's like, I think what I can do from my personal, what I'm trying to do from my personal position, I'm trying to preserve that things like subjective. So exactly to be voice or to be visible, very important now. Not to be an object of somebody's reflection, but still to be our voice by ourselves. That is, I think, something important. Even if it's really, I think, during the war, it's very difficult even for intellectuals, for historians to talk about war, to reflect on war. And even I remember that I negotiated with some German university about public law for heritage protection issues, and they said, we should wait for 3 years because you Ukrainians are very emotional now. It's not something like academic approach. And I think that is not correct. Actually, our emotional material is quite important too. Moreover, we have almost 3 years, actually. We haven't that time. That's why should we be neutral, and why should we somehow try to hide our subjectivity? So I think everything continues, and even more, and even all the networks became even more strong, more hard, more powerful, and that is much more visible now. I think we really much, I don't know what it is your feeling, but I really feel that network. It's like physical network. You feel all Ukraine as a network.
Okay, thank you. I would like to open it up to the audience. So this is the moment. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, comments, remarks, as usual. And I guess you know this probably. It's a regional thing we have. But I have a few more questions, of course. First of all, of course, many of your organizations, NGOs, cultural centers, you run most probably on public subsidies to a big extent, sometimes crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. What happens with the subsidies? Did you have to stop all your projects, or are they suspended, or you don't know what's happening with your projects? Can you see anything on the horizon for you outside of Ukraine? Because we saw European Cultural Fund, for example, had a grant opportunity for Ukrainian artists and cultural workers abroad. This was, I think, in a few days it was exhausted as a fund because there was a lot of demand. But is it something you can think of now? Is it something you have in your perspective? And how do you deal with running projects in general?
good question. So the problem now is we don't know how long it will last, and it's very difficult to plan anything, and it's also to plan your financial, like with salaries, with your projects, with anything. Before the war, we had different sources of funding because we had, due to this decentralization, we had funds from municipality. We also have a huge Ukrainian cultural fund operating in Ukraine, so we had also many projects supported by this fund, and also many projects as well were supported by different European grants. So for now, local, our municipality and Ukrainian funds, they are redirecting their money to army needs, what's obvious for now, but we have quite a lot propositions from residencies and funds supporting Ukrainian cultural workers in need right now, but they also, it's like one-time payment, it's not a salary or something, and as I already mentioned, that it's difficult to plan your financial future for now because you don't know how to do this. For now, DCCC functioning because part of the team is still in Dnipro, and now it's functioning as a hub for internal displaced people. You can come there to work. You can also, it's a big need because many people displaced from other cities to Dnipro, and many people with children, and because they had to leave their cities, and there are no activities for children where you can, firstly, to distract kids from this situation, and also to have free time to work, for example, or to do something. So for now we have co-working and these activities for children, and they are working everything on donations. So it's absolutely free, but it's absolutely free for people, internal displaced people from other cities, but it's free donation for local people who also come in to work there.
And I guess all the more important that we actually contribute with our donations to all this, these funds. Mahmoud, you had an extended exile, if I understand correctly, and you've been at the university for the last few years. How is your financial planning in terms of being able to choose what you want, or being able to maybe return to Syria to work? I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's quite difficult in terms of uncertainty and in terms of planning for future, or having trying to find financial stability, which is difficult to find in a way which is let's say working for Syria, it's like remote work since I moved out, but still part of the team there, or majority of them, I can say. But the only difficulty is this: some of the organizations' policy, they don't support the other parts out of the regime control. So that is, the organization applied several grants and projects, and I heard that's one of the reasons was the area who controlled it and did things. So they more support other parts than the region Idlib exactly, and the Ghusn Zaytun, the region was controlled also by Turkey. The other region, which is somehow supported more by Turkey, let's say, but let's say the Idlib region, which is now it has these dead cities and many archaeological sites, and the old city of Idlib as well. I can say exposed to many danger factors. For myself, as trying to somehow make stability outside to connect it to inside. So that's a bit quite difficult and challenging in a term of as standing alone outside, it's quite not easy, and trying to look back for what's happening there and trying to make connections and everything. Plus, that's the place there last 2-3 years witnessed a very huge displacement and destruction in terms of the front line and the war zone. So that's, in the region of south of Idlib and my area exactly. So that's quite difficult to predict anything for future because everything is exposed to uncertainty. You cannot, really, you cannot plan as everything it happens like what's has done in Ukraine. Like in one night, the following morning, we heard the bad news and everything started. So that's how things escalated.
And if I understand, you are still waiting for your asylum recognition here in Hungary since years.
Yeah, I have been now for 2 years actually, okay. And the decision is tomorrow or the day after. So that's why I'm quite. Actually, I'm still attending the course in Vienna, the cultural heritage studies, but online because I cannot be there, and that's how. Things is quite, as I said, everything uncertain and unknown. It's difficult to predict something while even you have the, let's say, evidence and everything, but it's difficult to adapt for that.
Yevgenia, what is your financial planning? Are you able to continue for long your operations? Sorry? Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, and the financial question is really something very difficult for me because the situation is, I think that, for example, our NGO had before was 7 projects, and just I think in the first week of war, 5 of them were delayed. There was a foundation that supported us said that they should be delayed. So that is quite a difficult situation because I think what we can see that, really, people are moved from Ukraine. They're quite supported in other countries, but people who stayed in Ukraine, they actually are not supported. And that is very difficult because, it's near 3 million people who immigrated from Ukraine, who escaped from Ukraine. Even me and Masha, for example, but we are the country of 44 million people. That's why just to stop all activities and to stop all the projects and to stop paying salary, I think that is not a good idea. For example, some institutions, international institutions, they just went away from Ukraine, and I think that is again something like a bad feature that they show that Ukraine is closed sometime or on the house, I'm not sure that is good because cities are different and some cities are total bomb and shelling or surrounded or occupied and so on, but there are a lot of cities that are quite peaceful and people should learn somehow there, and people, if they have education in cultural sphere, what should they do actually if all the projects will stop, how they will have some food, money, and feed their children. I think that is a very strange focus that, for example, it looks like everything is connected exactly just with migrants from Ukraine, but not on Ukrainians who stay. And even having that privilege that I'm a migrant and Latvia trying to help me, I think that it's better to help people who stayed and who survived and who really to stay in Kharkiv. It's really a very heroic thing just to stay there. It's something like
Thank you, Evgenia. Now we have a question. You have to come here, I guess, so that we understand you.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing all this information. Okay. Yes, hi. So thank you very much for sharing all this information. Must not be easy. I would be interested to hear your thoughts about how, if we are talking about cultural heritage and protecting cultural heritage, like what are your thoughts and ideas that how we can help that on a semi-long-term or a long-term type of basis? Because I see now that there is a lot of different initiatives like all around Europe or also in Hungary, but I'm not sure that all of these are actually like meeting the needs of people or the culture in Ukraine. I know it must be a very complex question, but I'm just like curious really about your ideas about like what can we do and what should we do, I don't know, like as an international cultural community in Europe.
From my side, I would say that I can share, because also the situation when the war happened, it wasn't like organized net of volunteer organizations who were dealing with different projects. It was pop-up initiatives who were working with urgent needs. So there are a few initiatives, for example, I personally know who are working with protecting cultural heritage. I can share these links, but it's like also private initiatives who are, for example, evacuating artworks. In long-term perspective, probably it's obvious, unfortunately, that it's money and funds to help to support operations in Ukraine. Then when war stops one day, there will be a huge need for restoration and for rebuilding, but also maybe then there will be like a big fund for these needs. But I can share for example, in Facebook event, I can share links to people who are working with saving the cultural heritage for now, and you can donate. Thank you, and thank you for the question. But also, I think that probably Zhenya has what to add.
Zhenya, do you want to add? Thank you. Last opportunity for questions and comments. Or maybe everybody's ready for a little networking, because what we also thought that Of course, I think you're all waiting to be able to go home, but as long as you're here, I think we would like to make it a bit better. And also, this is my last question a little bit. What can we do here for the people who are here? Beyond, of course, the basic needs like housing and food, how can we help you in terms of building your network here? Of course, we can go, as you said, we can go to protest and we can go to vote on Sunday, of course, as we have to. But what else can we do locally to make your life easier, more efficient, maybe in helping your peers back in Ukraine?
Talking about us, for example, with Alina, I could say that we are in safe place. We are absolutely fine, and but yes, we are open to networking because we are sitting at home, and I don't know, maybe 8% of our time we are reading news, and I can say that we are very productive for now. So yeah, it's very useful to distract from this. For people, it's difficult to say for people who, for refugees from Ukraine, because for now it's the situation changes every day, and for us we still have this feeling that we hope that soon it will end. We are not talking about days as it was in the beginning, because we were hoping for better. And but also we don't know where we will go, for example, for the next month or for the next 2 months. So it's very flexible and it's difficult to plan anything.
We have one more question. I can also, but you can come as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ivan Nebesnik. I'm also a teacher and an artist from Ukraine, from Academy of Arts of Uzhgorod. In Hungarian, it's Ungvar Karpatoja. The main thing we have to do is to stop the war. In any case, in any tiny possibility, we have to stop the war. Because if we'll not, we'll have nothing to save. Nothing to save. We can talk about UNESCO, I don't know, days and days to the future, but we'll change nothing. We'll change nothing. What we can do? First of all, we have to explain the problem. I think in all institutions, in all universities, we have to explain to students, to teachers, what is happening, what is going on in Ukraine. I think that there's no other solution. What we can do more? We can ignore companies that are supporting, that are still in Russia. It is also a thing we can do. Yeah, we can protest such companies. Of course, somehow citizens of European countries can help Ukraine, but it's a personal question. It's a personal question. Yeah, it's also, yeah, the first of all, it's a political level, I agree, and the first of all, we have to stop this war. And I think that's all.
Thanks. I guess that's a very valid point for the end. Does anyone want to add something to this? Or we should stop here. I would like to thank you, Zhenya, for joining us online. Maria, Mahmoud, thanks a lot for being here with us. Zhenya, unfortunately we cannot offer you any drinks and food, but hopefully next time you'll be here with us at some point. Thank you for being here with us, and let's think about, yeah, please go and vote on Sunday, please do whatever you can do, and also let's take care of the people who are our guests for these months, and hopefully not very long. And maybe tomorrow you'll be free, or after tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so thanks a lot. Stay with us for a few drinks. Let's get to, maybe it's a more informal way to ask questions and have a little chat. with our guests who actually live around the corner. So if you frequent Cake, you can also frequent Kultura Medialna Budapest section. So thanks.
Thank you for coming and for supporting us. Thank you.
Yes, and please don't forget to donate. Of course, you find the QR codes. Also in the Facebook event, you find the PayPal link, so please support.
And we will add, with Zhenya, we will add more links to support Ukrainian artists and to support organizations who are working with protecting artworks. And thank you.
Thanks. And also Cake started with some other architects a little Facebook group that is slowly growing, that would like to offer opportunities and all kinds of help to Ukrainian artists, designers, architects, creatives, and connect them with Hungarian offices, all kinds of Hungarian opportunities, collaboration possibilities. So this is for the moment what we can try to do, beyond, of course, doing putting pressure on politics. So, thanks a lot.